Okay, well, welcome to our, I don't know how many, our last remote sharing roundtable in May at least. Um, before we get going, I'll just do kind of the small little announcement-y thing. If you saw the email that I sent toward the end of the day yesterday, kind of the reminder about this, um, I, d- I don't know whether it's just that we've been doing these weekly and we, in normal times won't need to have them weekly, or if it's as libraries get busy, and come closer to reopening. But we're having a few less people at these. And so these remote roundtables will continue, but we're not going to keep doing them weekly. We'll do them kind of as we have, new events and new things to talk about. I know Erica is considering having a cataloging focused one at some point when we know maybe a bit more about delivery. We're still working on when that will be. So these will continue, but not on a weekly basis. But we will continue to have on a weekly basis. We're calling them virtual RSA office hours, and it'll be, at least a couple of member services people kind of hanging out on a Zoom call, and libraries could drop in anytime during those time slots and ask us questions. Of course, you could always call us, or email the help desk anytime, but you can drop by if you just want to talk through something or just vent or tell us where you're at, or, talk through a procedure idea you have, in just kind of a low-key casual way. So we'll keep having those weekly, but we think the big group guided discussions on a weekly basis at least have maybe sort of started to run their course. And so we'll kind of shift gears into that, but these will continue just more infrequently and kind of a little bit more targeted. So the virtual office hours will start in June, and I sent a list via email yesterday, and you'll of course find those on L2. Because they're just a drop-in, we're not going to set them up as like a register in advance thing. We're going to post the link on the front page of the RSA website, like, I don't know, post it like an hour before the start of the meeting or something, and leave it up for the duration of the meeting. And I sent the link to your to the listserv as well to join. So if you save that email, if you think you might want to drop in on one, and you'll need a password to get in, but we're not going to make you register in advance since it's sort of a drop-in thing. So anyway, so that's my little bit of announcement about those and that little kind of change there. Um, Meanwhile, I guess the big question today is just sort of, where are you in your reopening process? If you're doing any kind of service, whether it's curbside or whether you're beginning to let people back in the building, how's it going? Are you running into any problems with the system or otherwise? Is staff starting to come back, even if you're, maybe looking at opening on June 1st? Are you starting to have staff back in the building if you have staff? Those sorts of things. So I think I'll kind of generally open it up for general discussion. And then as usual, once that starts flagging, I'll put up one of my slides with prompts. So take it away.
Is anybody doing more than pickup right now? Has anybody opened their physical building to not staff people?
No.
No way here, but I saw where Jacksonville's going to go on June 1. But I've also seen where Jacksonville is one of those places where folks are kind of chafing on the stay-at-home concept overall. So
I'm in one of those communities too, Courtney. We have people who are very outspoken about not wearing a mask. So actually, I'm very hesitant to open the library because I feel like it'll be impossible. It'll be impossible to enforce that rule here. I read something on the director's listserv about ADA compliance and that not everybody has to wear a mask. And I mean, it's a huge debate in this town. And I've got a library board member who's one of those people who just, so I am really in a pickle here. I don't know what to do. They're going to push me to open the library. I've got community people asking me to open the library. My staff they want masks in place. I want masks in place.
What town are you in?
Wyoming.
Okay.
And there are a lot of people who just outspokenly refuse to wear a mask, and they're calling people who wear a mask as sheep, and I've heard it all.
It's
So
a smaller town thing. I'm because I don't live here, I'm not seeing it, but I'm certainly experiencing it with people that I'm encountering at the campground, which is the same rural
So
environment.
worst case scenario is my board says we need to reopen, we're going to reopen tomorrow. And my staff is very, I mean, they'll work, but they're not going to be happy, and I'm not going to be happy. But how do you enforce telling people to wear a mask, and when do you not enforce telling people to wear a mask? Help.
Because of the ADA, you can't force it, can you?
No, if someone tells you that, I believe that if they say, I can't wear a mask for, a physical reason, just let it go. In that case, we would let people in. Otherwise, I'm posting a sign that says, if you would like to receive library services, you will need to have a face covering. And we can do that.
It's been no shirt, no shoes, no service for ages on.
Something I saw from, and not a lawyer, but from somebody who is disabled, is ADA says you must make reasonable accommodations. It doesn't say you have to make the accommodation the person wants.
Mm-hmm.
So if the accommodation is curbside service, that is a reasonable accommodation.
Yeah, right, good.
Or can be. I don't know how it's going to go here. Looking around my town, I kind of get the sense that the people who are going to be adamant about not wearing a mask don't ever come to the library anyway. So, I don't know. We'll see.
If you've made a reopening plan and that is part of it, that's one of your requests, it should, even if your board member thinks otherwise, that should be okay to ask people to do. I mean, we just don't know. In another week or two, everybody may decide they're going to wear masks, if after these holidays and things have blown up. But it is a difficult issue, and we're very small, so I don't think it's going to be too much of a factor for us, but I can't imagine for the bigger libraries. And no one's coming in yet anyway. We're starting with curbside.
I hope we can stick with curbside because I'm just not ready to die on that hill.
So there's no one locally. I mean, Jacksonville, I feel like is kind of far away.
Far away.
Nobody locally is opening their building. That's what I'm telling my board because I have not heard anything about anybody locally opening.
I don't want to, but I'll know more Tuesday night after the board meeting.
Okay, so you have a meeting Tuesday. Okay.
I'm not going to recommend opening. No.
Okay. Mary, will you do me a favor and send a message out on the listserv to let people know what happened on Tuesday?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sure it will come up.
Appreciate that.
Because I've had 2 board members all along saying this is ridiculous, we should be open. So we'll just see how it goes down at the board meeting. They're a very peaceable group. We've never had, a bad discussion, I'll say that. But this topic is just volatile in our community, I think.
I'm feeling the same way. When we had our last board meeting, they pushed for us to, in my plan, I had us starting returns on June 1st and a week of returns to then get material to be able to quarantine and then to open for pickup on the 8th. And they refused that. They made us open the book drop the day after the board meeting and start pickup on the 1st. Mm-hmm. So we have people on our board also who don't get it, don't want to wear masks, don't understand the complexities of all of it. They are turning it into a political issue.
Exactly. And my
Yeah.
statement to the board is I've actually written a statement that as librarians, we are not, here in the capacity to debate politics or public health issues. We're here to comply with those, requirements and to enforce them as a government agency. But we'll
Have
see
have
how
you
far that
talked to
follows.
your county health department? They might
Oh,
give
yes.
you a little ammunition. Okay.
They don't have any ammunition. They have recommendations.
Okay.
Except for phase 3 of the governor's plan clearly states that face masks are mandatory, period. So,
Correct.
and I'm sorry, I'm here in Villa Park. I'm here for Candace Kretler, sorry.
Yeah. Some
mean,
of these people are out of their minds, though. You heard about the store clerk that got shot because
No,
he
I
asked
know.
somebody to
I
put
know.
on a mask.
I mean, I get the ADA people, and there's people that can't because they have asthma or whatever, and
Those aren't the people I'm terrified of. It's the crazy ones.
Yeah, no, I know.
In Kiwani, we're ready to open. I do have a couple of reservations about it. And one of the main ones really is delivery, because I think that our patrons will very quickly realize that we won't have the things that they want as they've been used to having. So I'll be really glad to hear that Rails is putting in that, and we're going to pick everything up and send it to their own libraries. We're going to, and then ready to start delivery for us. And I would be in favor of, if it would be at all possible, some type of downstate delivery, that doesn't include the Chicago, Collar counties, if that would be necessary. I haven't decided about June 1st, which is, what is that, next Monday?
Yes.
So, but we're ready. We've removed furniture. We have up sneeze guards. Everybody's wearing a mask in the building. I have one employee, and I told them to do this if they, she has asthma, and she got a note from her doctor that there may be times where she will not be able to wear a mask. And, the confrontation thing could be an issue. We're going to hope that it's not, and people are reasonable. I've been paying a lot of attention to Ryan Dowd. You get the emails from him. He's the homeless shelter gentleman from the Chicago area, and he's put out during this time a lot of good advice on how to de-escalate situations, things like that. When the governors on Sunday, all those guidelines came out for the different industries, the retail one spelled out how many people per square foot. So that was one of the things I was waiting on. And that really helped us, because when in our building, when we subtract all the staff being here, then I still have 80 people that I can let in the building. And we never, other than programs, which we aren't going to have, we don't have 80 people in the building at a time. And we know we're going to limit if you remember our upstairs children's area, we're going to limit that and ask the families to call ahead, because we know that like 3 big families will max that area out. But we're ready. We just have to decide. I'd sure like to hear if Peoria or Pekin were moving ahead or staying back, but I don't know that I'll be able to wait for them either.
There's some stuff in the chat. Let's see.
Hey, can I?
Thanks for your info.
I'm in.
Yeah.
This is Jenny from Market Heights, and we're being hopeful, being cautious, but we'd like to kind of start opening to appointment only by mid-June. We're doing curbside currently, so that would be the next plan, to allow small numbers in by appointment, asking them to wear face coverings and letting them get their supplies, turn in their reading logs and things like that, but it would be very limited.
That makes sense as a way to limit people in the building and kind of keep people moving in and out as opposed to coming and camping. Just a few people have posted some resources in the chat. Carissa shared the facts about using concerning use of face coverings. And I posted the link to the phase 3 of the COVID-19 response from the state of Illinois. So just in case, so people would have kind of that stuff handy. There was kind of the question of, can we legally open on June 1st? And I think a lot of people are kind of interpreting that, you know, retail can open with capacity limits combined with the thing about non-essential businesses, employees can return. As always, my my universal statement is consult with your library's legal counsel on, you know, and local authorities. So,
I feel if we wait for somebody to specifically mention libraries, we will never reopen because they don't know we exist.
Yeah, I think you'd be waiting a long time for something specific out of the state saying library rules exactly. So, and Carissa had asked if she could attach a file. I don't know if there's a way to do that. So if I figure it out, I will message. So
I will say that when we do come back, I am very much going to encourage all of my staff to, you know, every couple hours or so, go outside, walk around the block, breathe something that's not the air you just breathed out. Because we have not a lot of days when we're here for a long time, but there are some, and it gets to be a while. And so thank you. But yeah, so
since May 8th, I've been in the building with one other employee twice a week, and they're perfectly comfortable with that. We do wear masks, and these gals are both in their 70s, but we're, you know, several feet apart. I'm doing the curbside, you know, leaving the building. They're doing the, you know, preparing the orders and the discharging or whatever can be done that day. But I do have one staff member who hasn't returned, and she's very concerned about working side by side with another employee. So how have you guys handled spreading out your employees if you've called them back to work? Can you assure that they're 6 feet apart, or do you have people in proximity?
This is Laura in Dunlap. I know that there will be times that my staff is closer than 6 feet apart, and so I've made the comment that I'm sure some of you have made earlier. I'm requiring people to wear masks unless they are actually in their office with the door closed, and there's only 2 of us. I have my mask. But I'm not wearing it at the moment because my door is closed and I'm one of 2 people who have an office. I know you guys don't all have, you know, offices and stuff, but what I'm trying to say is I just told my staff, you're in the building, you're wearing a mask. And I'm doing it. It's not fun, but I've got grumpy cat masks, so it kind of makes me laugh. But you can't see it because I'm wearing a mask. So there's your laugh for the morning. And I don't know if that helps you, Mary, but it's what we can do. I mean, unless you want to add on an extension to your library overnight, it's what we got to do. Wear a mask and yeah.
Mary, when we open for curbside or for pickup on Monday, we are going to have just 2 staff in the building. One that will be taking the phone calls, and then the other person will be pulling the request and getting the bags ready. And then that same person will take the bag out a couple of minutes before the person's appointment and put it on the top of the drop box. And so because we're only going to have 2 people in the building at a time, and because we've worked out the logistics of one person will be in the back office answering the phone and taking the orders and then putting the piece of paper on the desk that then the other person will walk over and pick up and go find the items, we will be able to remain 6 feet apart because we've worked it out that way to make sure that we always can. Now, when we start getting more staff, if we have 3 or 4 staff in the building, which will happen at some point, then it will be harder to stay 6 feet apart at all times. So everybody will be wearing masks, but we won't always be able to be 6 feet apart. We're just gonna try our best to stay as far away from each other as we can.
We can mostly be 6 feet apart. We mostly have 2, occasionally 3. Right now, the third person, and depending, this may continue, she's been shelf reading and putting all the juvenile nonfiction back in order and finding the problems with that. We are lucky. I have an office and we have a workroom, and both of those have doors that can be shut. And when I bring my computer back from my house, both of them have a computer that has workflows and everything. I don't know when I'm going to bring my computer back from the house. I do also have a library laptop. I may keep running on it here for a while and leave the I don't know. Mostly because if I do videos, I've got a space set up a little bit better at my house to do videos than I do at the library.
Yes, Carissa, we had our last staff meeting by Zoom, and we are having our June staff meeting by Zoom. Then hopefully we don't have a meeting in July. So hopefully by August, then we'll be able to go back to having them in person. That's kind of the thought at the moment.
I also wanted to ask a question kind of off of Mary's question from a few minutes ago regarding staff members. I have a staff member that she hasn't expressed a concern about like working next to a person in proximity, but she has shared with me directly that she suffers from anxiety and she's having a really hard time just coming in to the library to do like shelf reading and other small tasks that I'm asking everyone to do. And of course, we're ramping up for curbside service starting on Monday. We're looking ahead to reopening the library in sometime during the month of June. But this staff member, I mean, she's come into the library absolutely shaking before, absolutely trembling. And I'm not really quite sure what to do because I feel like I'm really close to having to sit her down and say, look, if you can't do this job and this job is working with the public, we need to discuss you not working here. And I know that's a really rude thing to say, but I literally need an employee who will work for the library. So has anyone dealt with that from, like that point of view, like someone is just too nervous to work with the public anymore?
I know I had a few days where I wasn't sure that wasn't going to be me.
I truly am trying to be as sympathetic as I can because I realize I have I can often have a very pragmatic mind and just I look at a problem and I'm just like, here, I'm going to solve it. I'm going to solve the problem. And I'm not as emotionally involved as other people are. but there does come a point where I need someone who will actually do the job.
Are there other tasks you can assign her that would keep her, distance from the public as much, or?
Not anymore. I mean, during this whole, 2.5 month period, whatever we want to call it, during that time, she could barely do the tasks that I was assigning her either at home, or I would arrange for her to, I would assign her some small task in the library. Of course, she has access to the library. I would make sure no other employee would even come into the library. So she would be 100% by herself. That was too much for her. There were a couple times throughout this last 2.5 month period that she would contact me and she would say, I just can't do anything this week, anything. And since these were small tasks, I let it go. I said, that's fine if that task cannot be done, or perhaps I'll give it to someone else. And yes, I was saving a little bit on payroll. So I really didn't make a big deal of it, but it hasn't improved.
Laura, when I called our staff back to work, then that it was like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I clearly made it clear that beginning the next Monday, if they were not capable of working their hours, they'd be taking paid time off.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
At that point, my expectation was, we've been paying you all this time. If you can't come back, then take your paid time off. And then that kind of will push the issue, I think, if people are not being able to handle the work, if they spend out all their paid time off, and then what do they do? So that might be one option.
Well, thank you. You were generous, Barb, and some of you other libraries were generous in that you were kind of just still paying your employees, whether they did 100% of their work or not. I admit I was not as generous. I requested proof and timesheets from my employees all throughout this last 2.5 months before I would cut them checks. And so this particular employee, as I mentioned, there would be some weeks that she did not do any work. That meant that there were some weeks or pay periods that she did not receive a check. And it is no business of mine what her finances are, but she didn't quite seem to mind. And so none of my business, and yet I would like paychecks. That's my opinion on me. I work for a paycheck. So thank you, though, regarding the PTO. Yeah.
Well, at some point, as things return to more normal, you may be able to pull out your job description, assuming you have one, and say, here's the job description, and if you can't do this, then you can't fill this job any longer.
It's sad, but true, because none of these things are documented. She's mentioned a few other health things. Nothing is there's nothing from a physician or healthcare professional.
Well, even if there was, with a job description, you can't perform the job.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate having some conversation about this. It's hard.
I have one employee who, not in an official sense because she's part-time and we don't have retirement for her, but in an unofficial sense, I think she may choose to retire. She was already talking about, she turned 65 in September. She was already talking about retiring then. Her husband decided he was not going to return to IVCC next fall. He was going to retire this summer rather than next summer. So that's my only one that is sort of similar to yours, Laura. She is not in that position. She has been doing work at home. She's been coming in and shelf reading. But when we let people who are not staff back in the building, I'm not sure how that's going to go.
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean to do that. Okay.
I wonder if there's have RSA people, have you heard from Rails anymore about when we can expect further guidance about the quarantine thing? I read in an article in the paper that Peoria Public is only quarantined for 4 days. We moved to the 7 days, but you know, I really would like the final guidance so that if I can release my books quicker, I could.
The last thing I saw from Dee, and that was sometime last week, was that that group was expecting to issue guidance in mid-June. And then later the same day was when the CDC came out with the thing that said they didn't feel like COVID was dangerous on surfaces. So I don't know. It's one of those things that Rails isn't going to tell you that, you know, 1 day of quarantine is fine and then turn around and get bit by it, I'm sure. So they're going with whatever they've been told. And since they are officially dealing with the OCLC and all those folks, I think they're going to wait until the results of that study come out to figure it out. And, you know, I had lots of questions about that 7-day thing. But then again, I didn't read the study. So I didn't look to see, you know, was it visible or detectable traces versus infectable traces and any of that. So, but yeah, they're still shooting for mid-June as their date. Next week on Thursday, there is a Rails
member update.
Member update. Thank you. The staff meeting's Wednesday.
Link is in the chat if you want to register for that.
Yeah. So, you know, best case scenario, if several of you were to shoot Dee an email and say, you know, please discuss in depth at member update about quarantining for materials. I also expect that by that date, they should have a delivery drop-off date ready to go. I mean, because they said they were going to give everybody a 2-week notice before actually taking the materials from the delivery hubs and dropping them off. So I would imagine that's probably as long as they can push that and still hit that mid-June point where they wanted to. And one little last update, y'all were talking about people going back in the building. I have a call on Friday morning that just got scheduled about an hour ago to discuss at least a partial, not a full staff back in the building, but partial staff back in the East Peoria building. So I don't know what that's going to involve. You know, masks. The initial phone call, we were talking about, well, how is the ventilation run in the building? And, you know, that kind of thing. Do you have offices that share the same ventilation system? Well, yeah, they all do. You know, one side of the building is on one run and the other side of the building's on the other run. And so, we'll see. I don't expect full staff back in the building anytime soon. Certainly not in June. I think they're trying to target for, you know, a limited number of staff between probably 30 and 50%, with nobody sharing offices type of thing. Maybe in mid-June. Maybe that's awful aggressive as well, but we'll see. I mean, I'm willing to go back and work in the office, but, you know, I'm not going to, I don't want to force my staff to, and I definitely don't want to do any kind of rotating staff in and out of the building, you know, like you work Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the building and the other staff works Tuesday, Thursday, because we all have multiple monitor setups and laptops and docking stations and everything at home now. And, you know, we can't be dragging those things back and forth and back and forth. So whoever goes back into the building, you know, we've got to move all their equipment back in the building, set up their desk at work. And, you know, so now you have a work setup, you don't have a home setup anymore. So whoever goes back in is going to have to go back in permanently, essentially. So, but I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if, you know, if they're going to want us to be wearing masks the whole time we're in the building, even if there's only one person in an office. I don't know. So I'll find that out on Friday. And then again, that's something else I would expect that will be announced next Thursday at the member update.
Kendall, why would you want to go back to work in East Peoria? You're sitting in a paradise. It looks fantastic. I mean, really.
I was actually on that paradise. That is a picture I took about 2 months ago now. So
I have no doubt.
Yes. Yeah. If I turn off my virtual background, you would see that I'm in my office at home and not sitting on a beautiful beach in Thailand. And I will be the first to admit that I am far more effective in the office where my mindset is I should be working, rather than in my home office where my mindset is, ooh, look at all these toys I could be playing with.
Man, no doubt. It's impossible to work at home. My God.
My cats keep interrupting me. They're really cute.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons, folks, one of the reasons that I'm anxious to open the building is because I am fairly convinced that COVID's going to come around again, and we're going to end up closing the building again. And once I have one staff member or a family member of a staff member who gets diagnosed positive, then I'll end up closing the building again. And we really don't have, we're small enough that we don't have the option, like all of you, of having 2 separate shifts. I played around with that, but then I realized, no, we would all have been there today or the day before, and we'd all be exposed. So I kind of want to get us open and providing some things before we end up closing again at the end of July or whatever that's going to be.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. That really is.
Yeah, you think about what happens when one of your staff gets sick. I mean, what happens to your building? What happens to everything? I haven't really planned for that very well.
That was one thing that my our county health department was able to give good guidance on. I specifically asked the question, what happens if the staff person gets sick or a staff person family member? And they spelled out the steps. And so, not that I remember them, but I have them in an email for when it happens.
Well, I've hardly had to prompt any discussion at all. This has been really great. So keep going. But yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to know what the right thing to do is, and I just keep reminding myself that no one has been through the situation before, so it's not like we have, any of us, prior experience to draw on. But
I was just going to say to Kendall and Laura that I find it easier to work from home than from the library because I do not have my own office at the library, and so I am sharing an office with someone, which of course then there's always interruptions, and then plus our office is very close. I mean, it's right behind the circulation desk, and so so patrons are able to see when we are in the office, which they know we're there. And so I have people interrupting me every 5 minutes, whether it's staff or patrons who want to tell me something, who want to ask me something, who want to talk to me. So my days at the library, I don't really ever get any actual work done. It's wonderful to talk to the patrons, and I love it. And I enjoy that part of working in a library, but I don't actually get any work done until I come home from the library, and then I do everything that I should have been doing all day long that I never got accomplished because I was interrupted every 5 minutes. So I've been doing that for years. So I was already used to doing all my actual work at home, and so this has just kind of been an uninterrupted. I can just start in the morning and go and get everything done. So it's a little different for me than for a lot of you probably.
There was a cute video that went around on social media last week, or maybe it's still going around, about why we can't open the library, and the librarian was following the patron around with the Clorox wipes and wiping everything they touch. And my staff kind of took that seriously.
Oh,
And
no.
it's kind of a ridiculous notion to think that we can, be that vigilant, or that we need to be. I read an email on the director's list, the Rails list, and it said it's kind of like going to the grocery store. For a person to pick up a book and read the back cover is not as concerning as if that item was in their home for 3 weeks. The amount of exposure is not as great. So I hope some of you have good thoughts about, how vigilant we need to be. Of course, we're going to wipe down computer stations between users and hard surfaces, but I don't think that browsing is a major concern. How do you guys feel about that?
I am considering, I got a bunch of like 4-ounce bottles to put my distillery hand sanitizer in. And I'm considering just kind of encouraging patrons to pick one of those up, carry it around with them, and then drop it off as they're checking stuff out. And it would also have the added benefit of, oh, we've got 4 people in the building because 4 of them are gone right now.
But then
I don't
would
know.
you need to sanitize the bottle that they had carried with them for?
Yeah, I know. I mean, if we want to talk about me personally, there's a lot of it that I'm like,
I mean, just how many germs, exactly how many germs can we kill? They're gonna.
We want to talk, because some of my staff, I don't know.
Do we need signs in the entryway of the library saying enter at your own risk?
If that's the case, then I would say don't open. If they have to enter at their own risk, then don't enter at all. We're just not going to be open.
Yeah.
I have a question. For those of us who are doing curbside or something similar to it, do you intend to keep doing it when you open the building? Yeah, that's what I thought. That is my thought, because I have people who I'm not entirely sure are going to want to come into the building. And we've always kind of done it. So.
Yep, curbside's gonna stay. I wouldn't be surprised if parts and pieces of what my summer program is becoming is going to stay. To pick up extra participation. And I think you're right, especially in these smaller towns, you're gonna have these older folks that aren't gonna be comfortable coming back in.
I actually think that some of my older folks who probably shouldn't come in are going to be the first ones through the door. They are the first ones here in blizzards, so,
Not everybody is long on common sense. I don't know where you go with that.
Yeah, it does seem like, I guess I'm finding out through this that more libraries were doing curbside all along than I'd realized, or some variant of it. And experience has also made me realize kind of just how many libraries do have drive-up windows and things like that. It's kind of more than I'd ever really given much thought to. So.
Yeah, we didn't advertise the curbside, but if somebody called and said, I really, I had knee surgery, I really can't walk in today, or we ran it out to cars all the time. Or they came into the building and we'd see, okay, they're really struggling with what we'd carry the stuff out with them. So.
And I've done homebound for some of my elderly folks. It's just what you do when you're in a smaller community.
Are any of you thinking of doing things? There was just something in the chat that made me think of it. Doing like senior hours or anything like that. Just curious.
I really wasn't.
I was going to say, I am conflicted about that. I agree with what Kendall said, I don't know how many weeks ago, that it makes some good sense to try to do it at the same time other things in the community are doing it. But we're really not open at the time anything else in the community is doing it. So I don't.
Most days we open at 1 o'clock. Most days we have a couple of mornings that we're open too, but you know, the only way I can figure to do that, and I think everybody thinks it's a great idea, is just the first hour that we're open, we'll call seniors only. That's exactly what the businesses in our area have done. Of course, that's 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the morning, which doesn't line up with what we do. So the best we can do is to do seniors only the first hour. But I've even talked to the business owners, and they say, you know, that's something that a lot of seniors use, but if a younger person comes in, we can't really prevent them from shopping. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we're going to do it. We're going to say, you know, senior hours from, you know, 1 to 2 or 9 to 10, whatever that first hour that we're open is. And hopefully the moms with 6 kids will not come at that time. You know, hopefully people will be respectful, but that's not one thing. You know, that's not like the mask. The mask I want to enforce. The senior hours, hopefully people will, you know, enforce that themselves. Not going to die on that hill either.
Well, and there was one discussion of that is kind of like, well, should it be strictly senior hours, or you know, they may have people who are immunocompromised or otherwise more vulnerable to the virus who aren't seniors, you know.
More of a
but
suggestion.
Right, but it may also tell those people like this is a time when there will be less people. So, ooh,
I happened to be, because of when I wanted to be here for something else, I happened to be in Casey's this morning during their senior hours, which I don't believe 8 o'clock is when they are opening. I believe they are opening significantly before that, but their senior hour is 8 to 9. So I don't know. Because I realize, you know, the initial was first thing when you open, but I really think they are opening before.
Yeah, I think it's more of a PR stunt, honestly. Offering senior hours, it's, you know, it's like, oh, that's really nice, you know, and then people do whatever they want to anyway.
And Jenny, I see your hand raised. Jump on in.
Yeah, so as we move towards possibly reopening and offering appointment entry and just opening to small groups, I know it's a weird question, but our library is located in a city building. So we share the restrooms with the city office, which is currently closed to the public. Is it weird to restrict bathroom use to patrons, or is it like if we're open, you should allow bathroom use, and if they're not open, we shouldn't be open? It's such a weird thing, and so what we've talked to the city is limiting how long the people are in and not allowing bathroom use, because then we'll have to clean the bathroom. So that was my question, is what's everybody doing when they open again? Can people use y'all's bathrooms, or
Jenny, you have to offer bathrooms if you're a public building, but your comment on restricting how many minutes, in some way attempting to restrict how many minutes they're in your building overall, that is a way that you could kind of say, oh, well, then they'll most likely use our bathrooms a lot less, but you have to offer restrooms of some kind.
And, you know, this is a place where I'm really glad that in my building, all of our restrooms are single hole and they all have exactly the same equipment. We have 4 of them, 2 on the main floor and 2 down on the lower level, but they are all single stall, lock on the door, and all have exactly the same equipment. So
You know,
it helps on some of that.
we're not equipped to clean the bathroom every time somebody uses it. We don't have that much staff. So I think the bathroom could be a situation where it is use at your own risk. If somebody's afraid of public restrooms, they can hold it. If they're okay with using the public restroom, then I'm okay with them using the public restroom. There's no way I can go down there.
Thanks, everybody. That was helpful.
Gesundheit. Well, y'all have gone almost an hour without me jumping in and prompting at all. So now, of course, I'm questioning well, do we stop doing this? So do stay tuned because we will probably likely post, other times for these, just maybe not weekly, like I said. Any more discussion? Should we cap it at that hour, or do you want to keep going?
Well, I can
We're
say
just desperate to talk to other people that aren't our like spouses or own immediate families, right? We're just
Anna,
by keeping it to a library sort of kind of subject for you.
I appreciate these roundtables because I need to know, my board wants to know what's going on in other libraries. I missed last week, I think, because it was in the afternoon.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Yeah, that makes a difference. And especially now that we're doing curbside, the time of day may make a difference. But I appreciate these roundtables. And next, I wanted to attend this one in particular because now I can tell my board on Tuesday, hey, nobody else is opening except those people down south.
Well, we do have
Jacksonville people or whatever. But
we have a few more June 1st, I think, but we don't have a conclusive list yet.
Yeah, those are the questions they'll ask me, though, is what are other libraries doing? And so I need to know. So I appreciate these. I will register for as many as I can. So keep it up. Thank you.
Okay, well, and on the topic of what other libraries are doing, we do that survey about curbside services did close yesterday. So it's not beautifully formatted yet because I just closed it yesterday. But if anyone would like, I could share my screen and show some of the things from that. If that's all right with you, Kendall, or I can just have it posted to the website later today for you to look at.
There or both is fine.
All right, let's see. Let me close my extraneous windows here. So all right.
I was going to say, I am using it to talk to people. I mean, I talk to my staff some, but I'm the only person at my house. I didn't actually talk out loud at all on Sunday or Monday. It's a little odd, but.
Would you like a cat? I'll rent you a cat. You can talk to the cat.
No, I'm okay without a cat. Thank you.
My cat talks back to me.
Well, and so if you would like, the RSA virtual office hours can also be an opportunity for library staff to talk amongst themselves as well. So if enough of you show up to have a conversation during those hours as well, there is just the guided discussion topics are kind of the thing that's going away with that. It'll still be, we probably won't have quite as many RSA staff in those, but we'll have at least a couple of people from member services in each one to answer questions, and then you can also just log on and talk to each other as well. So it'll just kind of be a sort of slightly less directed, not that I've been not that these are super directed, but so we'll see how those go, and then if we kind of decide we still need these more slightly more formal things, then we'll put some of those back on the calendar. Here, I'll share my screen briefly. Here, I won't go into great depth with these, but all right. So, yeah, the first question was just contact info, but according to these survey responses, we've got about 27 libraries currently offering curbside, and 43 libraries that are planning to offer it as some part of their reopening plan. Some of the responses have been like, well, I responded that we're doing curbside, but really it's drive up, or we're not really going to their car, you know, things like that, but some sort of modified sort of outdoor services. And then we do have, you know, we had some questions about how you're taking requests for items, and those are a, you know, kind of pretty good spread. And I think a lot of these, you know, we did allow multiple responses. So it's probably libraries that will accept, you know, requests through any of these methods, basically. Um, Things like that, you know. And then kind of the selecting materials is again a pretty good spread between, yeah, we'll take your specific item requests, and if you give us, you know, some guidance about what you like, then we will make selections for you. Most libraries are calling patrons to negotiate pickup time and stuff. And then one thing that I will try to compile is libraries that did share their pickup scripts of instructions and things like that. I will try to go through those and get those into some shareable sort of format that we can, you know, kind of, you know, have a little pool of those that you can steal ideas from if you are needing to kind of word your own instructions and things like that. So, like I said,
It's
I
not
won't.
stealing, it's borrowing.
It's exactly. So, and some of the questions kind of repeated based on whether libraries were, you know, currently offering curbside versus planning to offer it at some time in the future. But most of the responses were kind of the same rough distribution and things like that. So I will get these, you know, kind of formatted and posted to the website later today so you can look at them, you know, in more depth. But I thought I would at least kind of share the brief overview of those since we were here. So, but yeah, that will be posted to the survey page on the RSA website sometime later today.
So one of the things I've been thinking about is when we do the annual IPLAR report. And remember, every time your answer is significantly different from last year, you have to explain it. Think of all the answers we're going to have to explain this year. I mean,
COVID-19.
just saying, I think they need to take that off this year because so many of our statistics are going to be so far off.
Barb, the answer is COVID-19. That's the
Yeah.
answer for everything. What's the question? The answer is COVID-19.
And then we'll do it all again next year because next year's more normalized numbers will look weird compared to this year's all messed up numbers.
And the answers next
Ain't
year
that
will be,
COVID
why is it
answer
different?
a lot of
COVID-19.
use.
That's the answer to everything, Barb. We have found the answer to Life University and everything.
It's 42 COVIDs.
Hey, I had an experience with the library yesterday. From my local library, Washington Library, the first day of curbside was yesterday, and I got a phone call that said my hold was in. It was a hold that I placed a long time ago. Didn't remember placing the hold. No idea why I put that book on hold. Probably because of the job. I was testing something because it's not something I would normally read. And so I got a phone call and said, we're open today 10 to 6 and that I have 2 days to pick it up. And so then I did pick it up. They do have a drive-up window. And I returned to my Washington Library books there that I have had for months. And I returned them there and then got to the window and the clerk, she had her mask on and she put on gloves and then she's gonna, you know, check out. And normally you just give them your library card. So I like, do you want my library card or my name? What do you want to do? And she's like, oh, just read off your number to me. And so, because she wasn't sure exactly. So I just gave her my number and she checked out the book right then and there and handed it to me. And I was in the car and I didn't wear a mask or gloves because I was in the car and it was far enough away. And she handed me my book and I was on my way. And it was easy peasy. There was no line, nobody else there, just me. It was, I had 2 days to pick it up. So that was my experience.
Very cool. You're kind of the first person I've heard of having used, that I've talked to who's used their libraries curbside. So kind of interesting to hear it from a patron perspective.
I placed a book on hold at Peoria North Branch, and so I went there as patron, and then the person who brought it out was someone that I had worked with before on committees and stuff, and so she gave me a really weird look, and she handed me the book, which ended up being the wrong book, but I still took it anyway. And because it was actually like a book for story time, the story time thing that I'm doing, and so it was fine. It was on the same topic. It was just amusing that it wasn't the right book. And so she looked at me and she's just like, well, this is only one book. And I was like, well, yeah, thank you for the book. And she's like, we got crates of books that say Dunlap. Why didn't you put any of those on hold? And I'm just like, just hold on to those for, a while. Sorry about that. So yeah, they're just going to sit there for a while until the delivery starts up again. But it was amusing that was her reaction when she recognized me. Why didn't I put all the Dunlap books on hold that she has sitting in her back room?
You just want these 12 crates, don't you, right now in the back of your car? Yeah.
Well, they're just going to have to sit there.
Barbara, I put some DVDs on hold in Kiwani, so I need to get an appointment to come pick those up. So I'll be testing your curbside.
Yeah, I guess they'll be calling you for them. So
Will they? Okay.
I hope it goes well. You can be our secret shopper for us.
Okay.
It should just make me think without delivery running, I wonder if, how much patrons will start going to different libraries than they would normally go to try to get stuff.
I've had some of mine already ask if they can. Because
yeah, we definitely had that in Dunlap. You guys know that we're so close to Peoria. We had people calling us and asking if they could, which part of me makes me think like, did you think that the last, 30 years you couldn't? But okay. 30 to 60 years. But I'm actually planning to phone other library patrons. Looking at our on-shelf hold list, I'm looking at, normally under super normal circumstances, we would pull all of our books and send them to, North Branch and a bunch of other stuff. I'm planning to phone those people and say, do you want it, as politely as I can, say, if you want this book, you need to drive to Dunlap. Do you want to drive to Dunlap? And then change the pickup location. And if they say no, they do not care to drive to Dunlap, then just reiterate, okay, well, the hold will stay here, and it will be months before delivery is resumed.
will it really be months for delivery to resume, you guys?
My most optimistic guess would be whatever the Monday after 4th of July is, or Tuesday. I don't know what day 4th of July is this year, but
Saturday this year.
is it okay? So we would have 5
Yeah.
off. So maybe the Monday after 4th of July. That is the most optimistic guess, because if they do 2 weeks before they empty out the hub, and then they wait a couple of days, and then they go pick up everything that's in delivery or waiting to be picked up from delivery from libraries. And then I think they're talking about they wanted to give 2 more weeks before they told libraries that delivery would restart. So that optimistically puts you at early July. And again, until they know how to keep the drivers safe, they don't want to run delivery, because, do you make drivers change gloves every time they pick up a bin? That's very tricky, trying to figure out how they're going to keep the delivery folks protected as well as they can. So honestly, you're probably looking mid-July, but
Well, that's better than my
optimistically
guess.
early.
I was running on the assumption I was going to be thrilled if it was going by the time the kids are theoretically going back to school in late August.
Yeah, and
I'll
I mean,
take the look.
it may be that long. There's just really no way to know right now. I think a lot
I
of it's going to have
know.
to do with how they, what the guidance is on protecting people, and that kind of thing. So
It's just part of the whole world is I don't know.
yeah, no kidding.
The answer thing is either I don't know or 42 COVIDs. I give up. I don't know. I'd sure love this stuff out of my library, though. I don't have space.
Hey, there's Jenny Losi has a great question for discussion. Would it help if we sorted our bins by library?
A lot of places don't have enough bins to do that. Honestly, I don't know that it helps a ton. I mean, delivery may come out and say, hey, if you could, sort these things by library, that'd be great. But the way delivery works, they pull a bin out. Well, they pull all the bins out of the van. The bins go into the hub. And then they put the bin down in the middle of a pod, right? So they have the entire route surrounding them, and they stand in the middle and they, sort everything on that route into bins, and then they go to the next route and sort those out. So I don't know that it would help that much based on the way delivery has the hubs set up. If they, if delivery wants to do that, they will tell you. I don't believe they will ever do, hey, sort things that are later on your route and we'll drop them off, because that's just a lot of work for the delivery driver to figure that out. And it's really not fair for the libraries who are early in the route, because then they of course don't get anything the same day. So so as far as I know, they're probably not going to ask you to do that, but they may.
That's a good question about swap and drop with other locals. And I thought I had already caught in a meeting where you are rather frowning upon the practice of us working under the table with each other to sort out issues of interlibrary loan and material exchange.
Yes, I was. And if you saw,
I was right. Shoot.
you saw the board meeting last Friday. One of the board members is in a Pinnacle library, and Pinnacle, the 6 libraries in Pinnacle would love to have delivery running. They're all very close. It's a small consortia, and they mentioned something about, we would like to start running our own delivery between our libraries to move these materials back and forth. And Dee's comment was, I really wish you wouldn't do that, or something along those lines. She couldn't come out and be as specific as, as I was last time when I was explaining the history behind it. But she was basically like, no, don't do that. In as politically polite a way as she could.
And why is it that that's a bad idea?
So delivery is paid for by the state. That is part of the state grant that goes to the state library. Pre-merger days in 2010, when North Suburban ran out of money, the North Suburban libraries are wealthy, and they started running their own delivery between their libraries. And after the merger happened and the budget things in later 2011 or early 2012 kind of flattened out a little bit, and the library's funding lines were better, the state library said, hey, we're going to reimburse you guys for the amount of money that you spent running delivery between your libraries. And the North Suburban libraries were like, oh no, we don't need the money back, it's fine, you keep it. And the state library's response was, you're going to take the money that it costs you to run delivery. Because who here wants to run delivery on their own dime? If the state, state legislators, personal opinion, backed up by very specific actions taken by the state library. But my personal opinion is if any legislator hears that libraries are willing to run delivery between themselves and pay for it, that is a budget line they can remove right out of the budget. And then there is no delivery in Illinois unless you guys pay for it.
Yeah, that
So,
makes sense. I get
Yeah,
it.
no, that doesn't work for me very well.
yeah. But the state library insisted that those libraries take the money that it cost for them to run delivery by themselves. Even though it was over and above what North Suburban's budget, which they ran out of money, it was over and above that amount, but the state library still paid for it because that is one of the 3 core state library functions, is delivery. And we don't want to in any way mess that up.
Rats. So we can't just go ahead and run it around between ourselves and then we'll send the state library a bill. Easy. We got this.
Yeah, that might work once, and then
Well,
then some.
Doing this.
Yeah. So no, I just don't.
But Kendall, how about just a one-time trip? If my books are sitting at your library, my books that belong to me, and I drive to get them so that I can have them on my shelves for my patrons?
That is not delivery. That is you, picking up your books. So I think everybody could look at that and say, yeah, okay, if I go like Laura, right? So she was at Peoria North, and Peoria North says, hey, I've got bins of books for you. Would you like some of them? Right? That's not running delivery. She's not running items over to North and then picking up items to bring back. She's just getting her stuff while she's actually at that library. Right? That's not delivery so much. That's just, hey, I was here and I have some of your stuff and I'll pick it up. I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that unless you specifically start running a route to go pick up all your materials at other libraries on a, say, weekly basis. And, oh, by the way, I've got some stuff for you. So here you go. Now you're running delivery again. But, like if you had a whole bunch of stuff at Galva and you drove over to Galva and picked it up because they were your items and they were stuck at Galva,
So
that's
there's
not
my
delivery.
offer. Let me know and I'll come get them if you're close enough.
I think the thing that's a little more worrying is, let's say you've got 5 libraries that are in somewhat close proximity, and we have several areas in RSA where you've got a group of libraries in a rather close proximity, and library X says, hey, we've got a library van, we'll just run it around between these 5 libraries and we'll move our materials back and forth and we'll do it every Monday. No, please don't do that. But if you go pick up a one-time pickup of your materials at some library, I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that. That pig sound you hear is my dog chewing on a toy.
All right. Any more discussion for today, or? Okay.
I was going to ask if Barbara could share the information she got from her local health department about what to do if a staff member is exposed or gets sick. That's
Yeah, I
something
can
you
share that, but I don't know. I can share that, but I don't know how.
On the listserv, maybe?
Which listserv?
The director's listserv?
Oh, I don't want to put that out there on the big director's listserv for everybody. If you email me privately, I'd be happy to send it to you. But because it was from our specific health department.
Right. So. Just, there are no guidelines out there from ours, so
okay,
it would just be helpful to have something.
Yeah, if you can, give me your email privately on our chat now or something and I'll do it.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind sharing it with any of you, but if you're talking about that big Rails listserv, I don't post on that very often.
Okay, thank you.
I did have, before we take off, one more question in the chat. How are you counting your virtual programs, like for statistical purposes?
It's easy. I'm not. The number's 0. Digital divide is really real, you guys, man. Out in this neck of the woods, man, I got a lot of folks that do not have this stuff going on at home, and especially not now. Equipment pickup has happened. Now they've all turned in the pads, the Chromebooks, blah, blah. So having less access than they had before. I'm not doing much in the way of virtual programming. I'll throw out a little bit of it, but not very much, not this year. But that's my very rural community. You know, I'm 800 people rural community. So
I feel like for last month's statistics, I did either something by number of views or something with like number of minutes viewed, which, you know, really means nothing in relation to anything else. You know, now the book club, we met 1 month on Jitsi, 1 month on Zoom. I could count the actual people who were there. And so I counted that same way I would have counted a regular book club.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming today, and hope to see you at the some of you at the virtual office hours sometime next week. Like I said, drop by, chat, whatever. And then, you know, we will continue, you know, like I said, these kind of more focused ones won't stop by any means. We may just go sort of reduce the frequency a little bit. But if you found this time to chat useful, you know, you can kind of use those virtual office hours for sort of much the same thing. It's the big difference is just you won't have me kind of providing talking points. I'll just be sitting quietly in a Zoom meeting and letting y'all go unless you have specific questions for us. So okay.
And the other thing with the virtual office hours is we don't expect you to dial in at the beginning and sit here for an hour and listen to the whole thing. It's hop in, ask your question, hop out kind of thing. So.
Yep. Exactly. And also too, it'll be kind of an opportunity to dive into, like, get real specific about what you're doing at your library without feeling like you're, you know, kind of taking over a meeting or something like that. So, okay. Well, thank you all. I hope you all had a good Memorial Day weekend, and stay safe, healthy. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and end the meeting here.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.